This podcast is brought to you by Reynolds and Reynolds, the industry leader in automotive technology. Learn how Spark AI, Reynolds' unified AI data layer, can help you unlock your full potential by visiting rayray.com/spark-AI. That's REYREY.com/spark-AI.
Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the third week in September 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. We're breaking down some of the biggest stories in the auto industry from the past week and looking forward to what's in store in the days ahead. Joining me today are Hannah Lutz, Director of Technology and Innovation Coverage at Automotive News. Hannah, welcome back to Weekend Drive.
Hi, Cal.
And Mike Martinez, who covers Ford and the UAW. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, let's get into some news. So, Mike, we're going to start off with you, my friend. Probably the biggest news of the week so far has been Ford's decision to demolish its longtime headquarters, the Glass House, and move to a new building at its engineering campus nearby. Now, Mike, Ford has been making a lot of capital investments in recent years between this and its new innovation hub at Michigan Central in Detroit. Do you think that's all part of a bigger strategy?
I do, and I think it goes beyond Ford to GM with its announcement of its new headquarters moving out of the Renaissance Center, going to the Hudson's development closer to the heart of downtown Detroit. And I think it basically gets to the fact that all of these companies, I don't think I know because they've said it, say they're in a war for talent. And one way to attract and retain the best talent is by having the most state-of-the-art, desirable places to work, especially in this post-COVID era where some companies are starting to call back their workers 4 or 5 days a week. New age employees want collaborative spaces. They want top amenities, outdoor areas that they can go to easily. They don't want these sort of traditional offices in these traditional buildings that the automakers have had for years. Ford's been in the Glass House for 70 years, and it was a different era back then. Bill Ford made some remarks this week saying how back then everybody just really desired that corner office so you could go to the office, close the door, and get work done. That doesn't happen the same way these days. So if these companies are going to find the best talent, especially software tech talent they're competing with the Apples and the Teslas of the world for, they better have some fun places to work. And this is all part of that effort.
Good point, Mike, because one thing I know about millennials in the workplace is that we like break rooms with really, really good snacks. And if you don't have all the snacks, like it's not a good day. I'm just saying that's key for millennials because we like to snack, don't we?
I love snacking.
I'm just saying, putting that out there.
Well, the automakers, they are smart to do this because they recognize who they're competing with. They're competing with Silicon Valley, especially if they want the talent to move here to Detroit or anywhere that is not Silicon Valley. They have to have the same or better amenities. So it makes sense.
I'm telling you, if you've ever seen the break room at Google or Facebook, you're like, wow, they pretty much have an entire Starbucks in here. Just putting that out there. Okay, now, Hannah, you've been following the Hyundai LG immigration raid story closely for the past couple of weeks. Earlier this month, ICE raided a joint venture battery plant in Georgia and arrested hundreds of workers who were later released and returned to South Korea. This week on Daily Drive, we brought listeners comments on the situation from Hyundai Motor Executive Chair Yoo-Sun Chung and LG Energy Solutions' Bob Lee. What's the latest on that story?
So Hyundai hosted its Investor Day from New York on Thursday, and Jose Munoz, who's CEO of Hyundai Motor Company, reiterated his hope that the U.S. government will enable appropriate visas for foreign short-term specialized workers, and those were many of the workers working at that plant. He said many of the ones who were detained were working on the final calibration and testing of advanced battery production technology. So that was the first time I saw, exactly what they were working on at the time. He also emphasized the long-term economic benefit that the facility will bring to the area in Georgia. So it's similar comments to what we heard previously, like at our Congress event earlier this month, but it shows that Hyundai remains really committed to this market and wants to work with the U.S. government on a solution pretty quickly.
All right, good stuff. Coming up, EV sales jumped again for legacy automakers in July and plunged again for Tesla. We'll talk about that and other EV news as federal incentives get set to expire next on Weekend Drive.
As your business gets more complex, it feels like productivity can't go any higher. You need a way to move forward to a future where you don't have to start every interaction from scratch. You don't have to search for actionable information. You don't have to manually pull data to make decisions. You need a future where the complex is made simple and you can do more with less. How do you get there? It all starts with a spark. Unlock your full potential with the next generation of automotive dealership technology that actually does some of the heavy lifting for you by texting leads, transcribing calls, making data-backed recommendations, and boosting your overall productivity so that you can spend your time and energy on what truly matters: selling cars and growing your business. Spark AI, Reynolds' unified AI data layer, can empower your dealership to operate more efficiently and effectively than ever before, so you can do more, sell more, and make more. To learn how Spark AI can help your dealership reach its full potential, visit rayrey.com/spark-AI today. That's REYREY.com/spark-AI to learn more.
Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Kellen Walker with automotive news journalists Michael Martinez and Hannah Lutz. Hannah, we're just about days away, about a week or so from September 30th, from the end of federal EV tax credits. This week, our own Lonnie Iliff wrote about the latest EV registration data from S&P Global Mobility, which suggested that customers were still flocking to dealerships to lock in those credits in July. Now, legacy automakers saw a 27% jump in EV registrations, but that was dragged down to a 6% increase for the overall market because Tesla had another dismal sales month. What do you make of all of this?
So we're seeing again that EV incentives and new products are helping those legacy brands in July, and they gave Tesla more competition to contend with. So that's kind of a continuation of some trends we've been seeing this year. And overall, the numbers are really good for EVs, and S&P Global Mobility expects that strength to continue in August and September. But come October, when the $7,500 tax credit is no longer available, those EV sales will likely drop significantly in favor of hybrids or gas vehicles. So we'll have to wait and see, if and how automakers react to that, if they will let the market drive decisions or drive sales, or if they'll incentivize EVs to make up for those missing credits. It probably depends on how many they have on the lot at that point.
Interesting. And meanwhile, Mike, Ford announced this week that it's looking to cut 1,000 jobs at its German EV plant because demand in Europe is lagging far behind industry projections. Mike, what does this say about automakers' global EV strategies, which seem to be facing headwinds even outside of the United States?
Yeah, I would say that, automakers beyond just Ford are running into this demand problem all over, even outside of the US, where you had, in some cases, much more strict government mandates in terms of the phase out of internal combustion engines and the banning, in some cases, in various cities. But it's another sign that companies, including Ford, really overshot the mark here in terms of what they thought would be required to meet that demand in terms of production, in terms of shifts, in terms of number of plants building these kind of products. Another factor to keep in mind here is that Ford in Europe and the other automakers in Europe are facing that China threat we keep hearing about much more acutely than obviously we are in the United States, because China's already selling there and undercutting companies like Ford and the other legacy brands in many cases with much cheaper EVs.
Yeah, that point on China is very clear. I mean, in the US, we don't have the competition of Chinese vehicles, especially for EVs. All the global markets are so different. And that is one big differentiator in Europe, that they do have to compete with Chinese vehicles. And Michael Dunn from Dunn Insights talked about it at our Congress event. He was saying that the Europeans are really terrified right now because the Chinese have the products at a low cost, they have the technology, and, they're winning. So they're definitely facing some competition there.
Well, Nissan also announced that it's canceling its Aria compact EV crossover for the US market. Now, Hannah, it seems like this trend of product cancellations and job cuts continued since we talked about the same thing a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, automakers are definitely recalibrating based on the EV demand changes that we talked about, the elimination of the tax credit, and also tariffs. There's a lot of factors at play that are driving these decisions around vehicles across the board, and especially EVs.
And quickly before we end, Mike, Volkswagen and the UAW have been trying to reach a contract for almost a year at VW's plant in Chattanooga. This week, VW said this latest contract offer is its last, best, and final offer. Mike, how do you interpret the situation in Chattanooga?
Well, the situation's really starting to heat up. Last, best, and final is a bargaining term that is pretty self-explanatory. This is VW saying this is everything we're going to offer. Can't go a penny more, can't do any better benefits, take it or leave it. Now, what happens from here? There's still a few things that could happen. The UAW could put this to a vote. They could call for a strike authorization vote. They could file unfair labor practices. Even though it's supposed to be last, best, and final, we have seen instances where a company will propose that, the union will reject it, and then they'll come out with an updated last, best, and final. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end, but it's a pretty clear ploy by VW to get things moving here in the hopes that there will be some sort of conclusion. And you do have to worry also about the fact that as long as VW has said this, that they're walking away from the table now, if the UAW doesn't engage, that could lead to an impasse. And if that happens, you could see a third-party mediator come in. Keep in mind, even the 2023 negotiations with the Detroit 3 didn't get to that point. So a lot's still up in the air. A lot could happen. But after a year, it does seem like it's finally coming to that end game now.
I can't believe it's been a whole year.
Long time.
Crazy, crazy. Mike, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
That's all for this Weekend Drive edition of Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer for his help on today's podcast. You can get the latest news on labor talks, electrification, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back on Monday for a conversation with Larry Dominique, president of LD Management Consulting, about how legacy automakers should respond to growing competition in China.
There is going to be a big impact on how the legacy OEMs respond to this kind of onslaught of this new technology, faster manufacturing, software-developed vehicles. So I think it's going to be a profound impact to the industry.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. If you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.